Let's take a look at some charts on Tezos from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So Tezos is a proof of stake coin. There are other coins that use similar staking mechanisms. The coins listed here aren't exactly alike, so it's not completely fair to compare them. Some have more default on-chain utility, like Dash and Accred sort of have on-chain mixing. Neo, I'll never know why their daily transaction volumes are as high as they are. They always are. What surprised me this go around was Neo's fees are extremely high relative to everybody else in the staking realm. EOS isn't on this chart because I can't get reliable data for it. And Tron is also feeless, so the metrics for Tron aren't really useful, like looking at these active addresses. Yes, they've had Tether activity on Tron recently, but being a feeless chain means active addresses and transactions per day are less valuable of a metric than chains with fees on them. So Tezos is number 3 by market cap, the highest in transactions per day, which I found surprising, other than Tron, which again is a feeless chain, so that those numbers are useless really. And then on all the other metrics, Tezos is kind of in the middle or at the bottom. If we compare those staking coins again, based on notional value being staked, Tezos is number 2 at 1.7 billion. DOT has like 3 billion now. DOT is super new. That's unlikely to last over time. I expect the price of DOT to come down as well. Same thing with SNX, Kava, Band, YFI, Seagold. A lot of these new coins, it's really unfair to compare on any market cap related metric. If you haven't been around for a year, the market cap can be infinity or zero. It's too volatile. There's too many pre-mined coins yet to be released, too many VC dumpings to occur to really rely on something like DOT's market cap. It's just silly. But nevertheless, Tezos 80% of the network is staked. 22% of the network is staking on exchanges. And I say this every video, but there will be a day when there's a governance issue that the exchanges and the users of Tezos disagree on. At that point in time, if users do not remove their Tezos from these bakeries, or in effect remove their votes for the decisions of the exchanges, the users basically forfeit their vote there because the exchange is voting for them. At least in theory, this is how proof of stake should work. We'll see if and when an event such as that does occur. It has occurred with Steemit and Binance, for example, and Tron. There's some interesting drama there, which basically came down to the Steem on Binance was used to vote against the user's wishes, and there was a fork and a bunch of drama. So that's a preview of things to come potentially for any staking coin where there's a high percentage of it on exchange bakeries. Most of this is on Coinbase and Binance, Kraken, and then smaller percentages on smaller exchanges. No surprises there. If we look at all the bakeries, mytezosbaker.com, a great website to show yield, efficiency, capacity is a big one. So OKEx is actually 1,920,000, something like that. Tezos oversubscribed, so they have to purchase like 20,000 Tezos or something to increase their bond. That's how the baking works. So theoretically, that should be bullish. What users could do is move their coins off of the oversubscribed bakeries and onto other bakeries with capacity. It's another option. If we look at transactions and transaction fees, so transactions were basically flat with fees increasing, and that almost always is a scaling issue or an underlying gas, DApp, smart contract, storage. There's something going on issue. And then it peaked here. I don't really know why. It peaked and then died down, potentially because transactions fell. But in the next amendment proposal, they have changes to gas costs that will address this issue. So that should alleviate some scaling pressures in the near term if that passes, which it probably should, considering it's a valid and useful amendment. Seeing transactions per day decrease like it has, is pretty bearish because it was flat, slightly increasing. Now it's almost at a multi-month low, just like price. I mean, all of these things correlate with each other, which is why I mention them and bring them up on every article. They're worth paying attention to. So it's hard to be bullish on Tezos with transactions declining. Active addresses continue to increase in the fill here, pretty much at all-time highs, slightly plateauing, but I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about. NVT, inverse metric of economic utility, based on on-chain data, is basically at an all-time low, which is surprising. My guess is if you removed the staking baking aspects of this, the NVT would look a lot different. It would probably be flat or increasing. I think the baking payouts, staking payouts, whatever, sort of deflate NVT because of all that on-chain activity. You can already see the active addresses. This is likely all mostly people staking, new addresses being staked, that sort of thing. There aren't really many dApps or smart contracts being deployed on Tezos widely that I'm aware of that I could find. So that's really all it comes down to, is from the active addresses being related to staking. If we look at the developer side, the GitLab, similar to GitHub, plenty of commits, plenty of activity. This is just one of the repos. So the development on Tezos continues to be active. Google Trends have declined, just like transactions per day, to multi-month lows. Again, not something you want to see if you're bullish. This should be increasing if you're bullish. And it's hard to get bullish with Google Trends dying off. It just means interest in general is waning. Now, if we look at some technicals, not going to sugarcoat this one, looks pretty bearish, despite market as a whole not looking so bearish. If we have VPVR, yearly pivots, volume, RSI, 50, 200 EMAs, and Bitfinex long short ratio. So the 50 and 200 cross look like they may twist bearish for the first time since late 2019. Prices below the 200, that's bearish. Prices below several yearly pivots at this point. Prices below previous VPVR support resist level. The next support down is $2 based on a yearly pivot. 180 to 130 based on VPVR. I don't expect it to breach this level anytime soon. And probably the most concerning thing is seeing these Bitfinex longs still extremely net long, because if price continues to fall and these longs continue to come off, price will go down further, known as a long squeeze, where the move is fueled more or less by people being over leveraged and caught on the opposite side of the trade than price just naturally selling off. But I still like 130 to 180 as a gigantic support. If you look at a potential pitchfork, that actually looked really good up until maybe 2 weeks ago when it fell out of the pitchfork. Another bearish sign for the current trend, specifically the rate of change of this trend, is pretty much over. No surprise there. And the cloud says it's bearish as well. So it's really bearish on any way I can imagine to look at this trend. And the XTZ BTC has already had its death cross here. It's below the yearly pivot on the R1. Next pivot is at 18K and 20K. There's a VPVR node, so I expect some support in there, certainly. Again, these Bitfinex longs are mega long. They're adding on the way down. So if this spikes to like 18K sats and these longs get scared, this could go to 10K sats. Like, things could get nuts just because of how leveraged this is. And this probably isn't that high of a notional value, so it's not really, this isn't going to spike to zero, but things could get really interesting if these longs decide, all right, that's enough for me, hit some sort of stop loss, and just close it all out. It's probably going to take a while for them to get nervous. So in the meantime, I like 18 to 20K. Big support there. But overall, Tezos is pretty bearish, kind of on any way I can look at it, mainly because it's been so bullish for so long that it makes sense that it just needs to relax. In this channel range that XTZ BTC has been holding is clearly dead now. So this is actually more bearish than the USD pair, even though the USD pair is quite bearish. I would say this BTC pair is definitely more bearish. So things need to show some definite signs of recovery over the next few weeks to months if Tezos is going to find some life.